Innovation has long been a major part of the Chattanooga, Tennessee story. Last time on Tomorrowtown, Tennessee, we had a conversation about one way that innovation tradition continues in this city with Brickyard co-founder Cam Duty. Brickyard is investing in early-stage startups and bringing those teams of founders to Chattanooga to grow and learn together. Today on the show, we talked to one of those founders, Luke Brickman, co-founder at Textla.
They ended up offering to fly us out here. They said, look, you have to see it with your own eyes. And so we took them up on that, and we all came out here, and it went from a co-founder that was saying no after the first call to we have to be here. And it's a magical place.
This is Tomorrowtown, Tennessee. Well, Luke, let's start here. First of all, for anyone who doesn't know what Textla is, just I know you guys are used to giving your elevator speech and all that, your pitch more or less. So explain for our listeners what the company does.
Yeah. So Textla is a SMS marketing platform that's focused on small businesses and solopreneurs. And we're the only platform out there today that's actually equipping businesses with what they need to be successful and dominate the channel, which is SMS. So what that looks like from us is we give small businesses the best pricing in the world. On average, it allows them to send 10 times as many text messages as other leading providers. So maximizing ROI is huge for this market. And then on top of that, we are providing them strategic guidance on how to actually craft campaigns that convert, how to actually engage with your audience. And so we're doing that from our strategic in-house knowledge and then applying AI and LLMs to it as we progress to the future.
Yeah, just a quick question on that. You said that you're able to help businesses in ways other companies that do generally what you do in a different way. How is it that you're able to do it better, different? You said send more messages out, quicker. How do you do that?
Yeah, so as far from, we have a few unique things. We're doing pricing differently. Mm-hmm. We also have significantly better deliverability and then the customer experience. And so starting with pricing, we have taken an approach that's kind of democratizing the status quo of the business model. So everyone else out there today is upselling expensive contracts that these businesses have to lock into. And it's the classic innovator's dilemma where they've built, a business on tens of millions of dollars in revenue and they simply can't pivot, and it's sort of monopolized in a way. And so we're coming into the market, not requiring contracts. So it's all pay as you go. We have a credit system. And then as far as the rates that we're doing, we're actually not making any margin on the SMS rates because we believe that SMS is a commodity and that the value of SMS should be decoupled from the value of the software that sits on top of it. And so we are providing, this channel at cost, which no one else is doing in the market.
How'd you land on this as when you're dreaming up of what you wanted to do for a career? How'd you land on this?
Yeah, well, I had no plans to start Textla. It actually just kind of fell into our lap. So most recently, I led inbound sales at Twilio. I was their youngest hire in the company's history at 19. But I'd come from an entrepreneurial family and background. And so during my time at Twilio, I saw this pattern of small businesses that were voicing a problem around pricing and the inability to have a holistic platform that serviced their needs. And they're having to piecemeal together all these different platforms. And so it tallied up, to about 10 to 15,000 businesses a month that were coming through the Twilio sales pipeline voicing this problem. And so, that was a perfect opportunity to start Textla, and given my background in the communication space, we put together a team and launched Textla.
So you were 19 when you started there. So did you? So tell me that. Were you in college? Did you go to college?
Yeah, I didn't go to college.
Gotcha. So you went from high school to work.
I did.
And then over some time, you started. How long has this business been in business?
About a year.
About a year. So, I mean, explain that. Like you said, you wanted to be an entrepreneur and you came from a family who believed in that kind of idea. Making that leap to go, okay, we're going to do this. Like, what is that like as someone who was young, doesn't have a lot of business experience? Like, how did you see that? How do you navigate that? Like, tell us what you can around just that mindset. Not everybody has the courage, gumption to decide, okay, this is my thing. I'm going to do this for a living. Mm-hmm. How do you do that?
Yeah. So, I mean, it was exhilarating. I feel like I have grown up in an environment that has truly prepared me for this. Okay. And I think which is really unique and a blessing at the same time. So from a very young age, I had to learn adaptability. So I've lived in, 4 or 5 different countries: Switzerland, Africa, the Caribbean, constantly moving around, seeing new things. And so, A, you have to be super flexible and adaptable. And then B, you start to pick up on, new things in your environment and problems and, seeing what's not working. And so from a young age, I had gone through that. I had witnessed my parents make many mistakes with their startups, right? So you know what not to do, what does work. And so it was a great experience going through that. And so by the time that I was ready for college, I had read over 15 books out of the Harvard MBA program with my dad. And so when you compare the curriculum that I was going to go to TCU, I got in, that I had gone through versus what they were offering. And it was during COVID, by the way. So it was literally all online, on Zoom calls. And I had friends that were just complaining about it all day long. And so I decided, I don't know what I want to go do, but I'm going to put my best foot forward and, take on a challenge, which was to get into Twilio, and I did. And then the opportunity of Textla just presented itself, right in front of me.
So what kind of business was your dad running at the time?
Yeah, so they launched a company called Polka Dot Design, which was their first company. It's a stationery. So they're the first to do online stationery where you could customize, wedding invitations, birthday announcements, whatever it is, online, and then have them printed and shipped and personalized. And so they scaled that, sold it in 2008. And then right now they're, pioneering an ed tech company.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. One of the interesting things you told me before we started rolling here was that when you launched, you had teammates in other places across the country. You didn't have an office necessarily that everybody got together and worked out of. You do now, but you didn't before. So explain that. Like, how did you find your team? How did you determine that was the way to go just to start a business? Like, how did you come up with that model for building what you built?
Yeah. So like you mentioned, our team's from, all over the country. Was really lucky with our first hire, which is Jake. He is my best friend. So I met him in 4th grade. Yeah. So that was a pretty easy decision. And he actually ended up interning for my parents' company first.
Oh, wow.
And so while I was at Twilio and launched Textla, he was living with me in the house. And so it was just a natural, he joined the team and started supporting all of our customers. And then in terms of the rest of the team, David, our CTO, we actually found on Reddit. So we were applying to Y Combinator, and we're on the YC forums, and here comes David, looking for a startup to join. And so I actually sent him a DM on Reddit, and his post got taken out 15 minutes later. So it was just pure luck, short window of time that I was able to see it. And it actually turned out to be great. Like, we had so many great conversations, and he joined the team, moved from Cincinnati here to the Yard. And then Jeremy, our VP of growth, came from an actual referral at Brickyard.
Yeah. So, obviously, like we said, the theme of the podcast is around Chattanooga and the growth of Chattanooga. You've only been here for, how long have you been in Chattanooga now?
About 6 months.
About 6 months.
Yeah.
And so, but you're part of something that is really interesting. And when you have a startup, like you're talking about, you're often, like you said, Y Combinator, you're often going out trying to get people to invest in your company. And that can be daunting, I know. So tell me about that process, right? When you're thinking, okay, I need some investors. I can't do this alone. What is that process like? Are you just basically hoping against hope that somebody will see what you've built and be interested? I mean, how do you look at that?
Yeah, I mean, it's challenging to say the least. It's probably one of the hardest things we've done outside of our product, and just requires a ton of grit, right? Like we got told no over 100 times until we actually finally raised our round. And what it forces you to do is become really good at, taking no for an answer and just pushing forward, and then, crafting like your storytelling. And so for us, we got very lucky with our first customer, who was actually an LP at a VC fund. And so our very first customer, that happened completely organically, he called into Twilio. I was still at Twilio during the time, referred him to Textla. He loved it so much because he was sending out political campaigns and ended up saving 90% on his SMS bill, which allowed him to make vastly more money servicing politicians. And so he loved it so much that he referred us to the VC that he was a part of, and we got our first check from them. And then that kind of launched the momentum of the rest of our round. And then how we met Matt and Cam was we got into Mercury Raise. I don't know if you've heard of Mercury Bank. They're kind of a competitor similar to Brex. They're huge in the startup world. They're kind of like Mercury's the go-to banking for any sort of startup. Gosh. And so we got into their seed program, which I think we were one out of 50 companies out of 13,000 that applied. And so Matt and Cam ended up being on that list and reached out to us, and we learned about Brickyard. And so
what is it like when someone says, because I don't think that every VC is obviously doing what they're doing here, when they say, we need you to relocate to a city you maybe you've never been to before, and set up shop here for at least a year, maybe more. And what is that, when you first heard what they do and the offer to come here and be part of this, what'd you think?
It was a radical idea.
Yeah.
Like, I remember getting off the phone with Brickyard the very first time, and my co-founder was just like, no, like we're not moving, right? And then we started to think about it more, and the Brickyard guys were so upfront and transparent that they gave us the time of day to just ask as many questions as we wanted to. And so they ended up offering to fly us out here. I said, like, you have to see it with your own eyes. And so we took them up on that, and we all came out here, and it went from a co-founder that was saying no after the first call to like, we have to be here. And it's a magical place.
Tell me that. Why do you say a magical place?
I think when we walked in for the very first time, you could just feel just this grittiness and everyone working as hard as they possibly could towards something. And, we had been a part of another, I guess I would say another accelerator because Brickyard isn't one. But we've been a part of some accelerators and some environments where it's a lot of fluff. Like, it's a feel-good environment. The founders are there, from 9 to 5, and then they kind of go off and do their own thing. And here it was completely different. It was like my dad was, special operations as a ranger, and I'd grown up in a just high-speed environment, and I hadn't felt that in the startup world until we came here.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So what did that do? You got two guys are motivated and have done it themselves. Did you know about bellhops at the time?
We had no idea.
Gotcha. Had you heard about Chattanooga at the time, as far as like entrepreneurship and that kind of thing?
Yeah, we had kind of heard about it as far as like some tech there, but that was from like maybe a post on LinkedIn, and that was about the extent that we knew.
So very minimal knowledge of it at all.
Yeah, extremely uneducated.
So what does that do when you do walk into a place and you go, oh, this is different. This is something that I didn't expect to find here. What was that like?
It was wild.
Yeah.
I mean, I think like we had no expectations of like who was going to be here. Like, we had no idea, and we walked in, and it was all of the most innovative companies in the US were here. Y Combinator, other prestigious VC backed, firms are backing startups here. And then Matt and Cam's credentials with bellhops, it was mind blowing. We're like, this is in Chattanooga?
Yeah, right.
Like, what?
Yeah. But I think that's the thing. I think even people who are here, been here for a long time, may have heard, they clearly know about bellhops, right? But they maybe not know the founders' names, and maybe they don't know about what's happening here. But it is kind of like that kind of best kept secret kind of idea.
Totally.
Do you feel that even in the startup world that people, you didn't know, but like when you talk to people that you have to explain, you don't understand. This is what it is. Do you feel like that is what you do?
Yeah, I mean, there'll be times like, hey, where are you calling in from? And we're like, Chattanooga. And we kind of get like a weird look. And then they kind of see the office behind us and they're like, whoa, like that's cool. Where are you guys at? And we tell them, and it kind of clicks with them. And so, yeah, I mean, it catches people off guard all the time, because we talk to so many companies like, oh, we're from San Francisco or from New York or from Dallas, and that's where they're based. And then here we are in Chattanooga, crushing it. So.
Yeah. So obviously a lot of positives, but with everything, nothing's perfect, right? We know that. Just being rational. So what are the challenges of being in a town like this? Because like we talked about before, flights in and out are not like it is in Dallas, right? It's not a big town. It's a comfortable town, but it's not a big town. What are the challenges of growing kind of here, I guess, as you see them now?
Yeah, I think flights are like the biggest part for us because some of our team, like James, for example, he's like a hybrid. So he spends half his time here in Chattanooga and the other half in Cincinnati. And so for him to be able to fly into, it's like not direct. So it adds to the cost and travel time. And so like we come from being in Dallas where you can literally get anywhere in the world, right? On a direct flight. And so that was a pretty big change for us. And then I think too, like just being it's not necessarily a negative, but it was a big culture difference for everyone coming from like larger cities where there's, a million dining options and the infrastructure to a smaller city that's going through some growing pains. But yeah, other than that, like it's been great for us.
Do you feel like being in a town without all of those things sometimes maybe is helpful in some way because there aren't distractions that there might be in some places? No,
I mean, I think it goes back to what Matt and Cam have built, which is, an insulator, right? Like that's what they call it. And that's what excited us was like, okay, we're getting rid of all the distractions. This is your mission. These are your battle buddies, which is the other companies here. Sure. And, charge forward and not be distracted by, the things of this world that may get you. So
there's plenty out there to get you for sure. So tell me this. I don't have much more time here. So tell me a story, if you could, about the collaborative, environment here. The fact that you do have other businesses inside this building that may have been doing it longer than you, or maybe not, that you can go to and bounce things off of. How has that been for here in this space in Chattanooga? How has that been for you and your teammates as you start to grow?
Yeah, it's been phenomenal. I mean, that's how we got Jeremy, our VP of growth, came from the network of Brickyard. Outside of that, like it offers, many different perspectives on go-to-market. Like we meet with Bethany at SynSpark, and she's awesome. And we have kind of like a meeting of the minds, we call it, where we kind of all get together and bounce ideas off of. And so you have go-to-market, different perspectives, product perspectives, as far as engineering chats, the network of warm referrals from, we need help with this initiative or this contractor or whoever it may be. I mean, there's so much more they have available to you than if you were, kind of in an isolated environment operating by yourself.
If you're in your basement in Fort Worth and your teammates are in Cincinnati,
yeah, there's no chance.
It's a little different, right?
It's extremely different.
Yeah. All right. Luke, thanks for your time. I appreciate it today. Good luck to you.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks again to Luke Brickman. And if you want to listen to our last episode with Cam Duty, co-founder at Brickyard, we have a link to that show in the show notes of this episode of Tomorrowtown, Tennessee. This podcast is a production of News Channel 9, Fox Chattanooga, and Sinclair Broadcast Group Chattanooga. We hope you join us again real soon.